So 10 people turned up in Geneva, but it could have all been very, very different. And according to excellent sources behind the scenes, apparently once again, shall we say, miscommunication was to blame.
Sometimes the big picture is best understood through the small details, not the headlines, not the statements, not the carefully managed images released at the optimum moment for maximum engagement. The small things, the ones that slip through before the narrative can be controlled. Today, there are two of them. The first, a beautifully inscribed boarding card from a British Airways flight posted to social media with what appeared to be a warm and personal message from the crew, a touching moment of connection at 30,000 feet. The second, a room in Geneva with more barriers than people, a speech delivered, a microphone picked up, and the uncomfortable question of why, when a major event had been publicized across local radio stations and digital platforms, the crowd that arrived numbered somewhere in the region of 10. Two small details, but pull on either thread and what unravels tells you considerably more than the polished version of events would like you to know. Let's start with the boarding card. When Meghan Markle posted the boarding card, the implication was clear. Here was a genuine moment of recognition. Crew members who had gone out of their way to mark the occasion with something personal. A lovely gesture, warmly received, evidence of the kind of connection that exists between someone who is genuinely liked and the people who encounter her in ordinary moments of travel. It was the kind of post that generates exactly the response it was designed to generate. Here is what actually happened. British Airways has a process, entirely standard, entirely routine, for identifying passengers who might be celebrating something. Birthdays, anniversaries, nervous flyers who might benefit from a little extra warmth. At check-in or boarding, someone on the team flags it and the cabin crew are made aware. In this case, a member of Meghan's team made sure the airline knew who was on board, the crew were informed, and what followed, the card, the inscribed message, the personal touch, was the standard response to that heads up. Not spontaneous, not organic, not evidence of the crew going out of their way because they were moved to do so. A process triggered by a prompt from her own team. There is also a detail in the card itself that, once you know what to look for, tells its own story. The same name appears twice among the signatures, signed once in the pre-prepared section and once again by someone who did not realize the card had already been completed. A small administrative overlap that suggests rather more standardization than the personal, handcrafted impression the post conveyed. British Airways, for their part, have not promoted or publicized the story. The airline, like several others in this particular chapter, has calculated that active association is not something they are currently seeking. The card was a nice gesture, but it was a prompted gesture, and the version that was shared with the world was the version that left that detail out. Now to Geneva, and to the question of what was supposed to happen versus what actually did. The event had been publicized, local radio stations carried it, digital platforms in the area promoted it. The information was out there, available, findable by anyone paying attention. And yet the room, the space where barriers had been erected, where a security perimeter had been established, where a microphone and a stage had been set up for an audience, was, when the moment arrived, occupied by approximately 10 people. Now, there is an explanation for this that matters and should be stated clearly. The event had been billed in local communications as featuring both Meghan and Harry. Not confirmed, not guaranteed, but strongly implied. People who had seen that billing and were interested in attending made a reasonable calculation about what they were going to see. When the reality became clear that this was a solo appearance, Harry was not coming, the interest that had existed around the event largely did not transfer to the alternative. This is not a commentary on the cause itself, which was serious and deserving of proper attention. It is a commentary on the specific draw that was being advertised versus the specific draw that actually showed up. There is a source familiar with the Geneva situation who has described what it was like on the ground, and the detail that stands out is not the crowd size. It is the security setup, barriers erected, a perimeter established, the infrastructure of a high-profile protected event in place and visible, and then an open field, people walking past with phones. The kind of accessibility that the security argument, the one being made in court, in political correspondence, in sustained legal proceedings, cannot easily explain. You cannot argue simultaneously that you face threats serious enough to require state-funded protection and appear at an event that anyone could walk up to. The two positions do not fit together. And people whose job it is to think about these things, in government, in palace circles, in the legal proceedings still ongoing, have noticed the gap. The Harry factor, what his absence revealed. Here is the thing about Geneva that is hardest to say plainly but needs to be said. Harry's absence was not just an inconvenience, it was a revelation. Because what 10 people in a room tells you, when the same event had been promoted as featuring a former senior member of the British royal family, is something specific about what the draw actually is. It is not the cause. The cause was present. The cause was articulated from the stage. It is not the speaker in their own right as they currently stand. It is the residual association with an institution that was left behind. The borrowed credibility of a title, a family name, a history that predates everything that has happened in the last 5 years. When that association is present, when Harry is on stage or even in the building, doors open, rooms fill, radio stations publicize, people come. When it is absent, the mathematics are different. This is, for anyone paying close attention, not a new observation. It has been visible in Australia, in the Middle East, in the various events and ventures and launches that have worked when one element was present and struggled when it was not. The element is not celebrity, it is not fame, it is not a Netflix deal, or a lifestyle brand or a podcast. It is a connection to something old and significant and impossible to replicate. And that connection cannot be sustained by social media posts and boarding cards. It requires the actual presence of the institution, or at least the person most directly associated with it. When Harry is not there, the room shows you what is left. The miscommunication story, and what it really means. Behind the scenes, the explanation being offered for what went wrong in Geneva involves miscommunication, signals that were not clear, expectations that were not properly managed, a gap between what was planned and what was understood by the people on the ground. Miscommunication is a real thing. It happens. In complex organizations with moving parts and multiple stakeholders, things get lost between what was intended and what was understood. But here is what miscommunication cannot explain. It cannot explain why, across Australia and the Middle East and Geneva, the same gap keeps appearing. Between what was expected and what arrived, between what was promised and what was delivered, between the size of the occasion that was prepared for and the size of the occasion that actually materialized. At some point, a pattern that is consistent stops being miscommunication and starts being something else. A mismatch between how the brand sees itself and how the world currently sees it, between the level of interest that is assumed and the level of interest that is actually there. That mismatch will not be fixed by a better logistics team or a clearer briefing document. It requires a more fundamental reckoning with where things actually stand. A boarding card that was prompted by her own team. A room that filled to 10 because the person the room was expecting did not arrive. 2 small details, easy to dismiss individually, harder to dismiss together, because together they point to the same thing, the distance between the version of events that is presented and the version of events that actually occurred. That distance has been growing for a while now, and the small details, the ones that slip through before the narrative closes around them, keep marking exactly how wide it has become. Drop your thoughts below. Whether you read these details the same way or see something different in them, I want to hear it. Like the video if it helped you look past the surface. Subscribe if you want to stay with the story at this level. Take care. See you very soon.